Hey everybody, this is Mark Lamont Hill with What's at Stake. Today we're on the campus of Howard University with some amazing students.
I'm Tootie Wilson, a senior, and I serve as president of Alpha Chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha.
My name is DeMarquin Johnson, senior, and I serve as co-captain of the debate team.
Layton Watson, I'm a senior English major, and I serve as the student body president.
Allison Carpenter, I'm a sophomore political science major, and I serve as an advisory neighborhood commissioner for the District of Columbia.
And I'm Derek Spencer, I'm a senior English major and the president emeritus of Howard University College Democrats.
One story that doesn't seem to be going away is the story of Ferguson. Why do you think this story is resonating more than Eric Garner or Sean Bell a few years ago?
Nothing substantively has really changed. Darren Wilson still hasn't been indicted. Michael Brown is still dead. And people are still protesting in the streets. And I think it's actually to their benefit and to their credit that they're making us still have this conversation.
This is a representation of what happens to African Americans every day. When you walk into a grocery store, when you're shopping, it's just being racially profiled.
He was an 18-year-old. He was on his way to college, and it seemed to be someone who on the surface was doing the right thing and on the right path. And then Officer Wilson happens.
It's happening so frequently now that I'm almost numb to it. So I see the picture and I'm just like, well, that's America.
Well, one thing that's interesting is Alice and Layton, you two actually organized a trip to Ferguson after all this happened. What made you do it?
I couldn't keep watching it and then not go do something. First, the hands up, don't shoot photograph happened, which went viral, but then it wasn't enough. So we decided to take a group of 50 students down to Ferguson. When we got down there, you realize that you have to speak with people and figure out what they need you to do.
And what did they need?
They wanted us to stand in solidarity with them. They wanted support. They didn't want to feel like after a couple of weeks went by, we would forget about them. And I also think they wanted to paint a clear picture of what was really going on, because what you see on TV and what you've heard about it is not exactly what's going on down there.
I think the most striking thing that I saw in Ferguson was the number of young people taking charge. It was young people leading marches, young people organizing. Do you think that this was a moment where maybe the baton was being passed to another generation?
I think it's a moment where the baton is being fought over. The frustration that we saw with a lot of young people is they felt like the microphones were all being shoved in front of the older generation. And what the young people were saying was, we're the ones getting shot and killed. We're the ones that are laying in the street for 4 hours. So we need to be the ones that are speaking out and have the camera in front of us and get heard.
Generational divide that kind of occurs during times of this nature isn't something new. Even back during the Civil Rights time period, when you saw the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and then the SCLC, you saw them kind of having a tug of war of what are the best tactics, who should be the voice of this movement, or what should be done. There are different paths that can lead to the same results. We need to start working together and not just focusing on who's going to be the voice, what's the right way, but making sure that we do start showing that Black lives matter.
Let us know what's at stake for you. Go to BET.com/what's at stake and tweet us at what's at stake.
What's different about this generation's approach to leadership than maybe the previous generation? Derek, what would you say?
I would say social media. Social media activism has been a huge part of how this whole conversation has gone. Hands up, don't shoot photo going viral, hashtags and Twitter. Within minutes, people know what's going on.
And the only criticism I have is it's one step in the process, but it doesn't ultimately lead to change without some sort of substantive language or message within the activism, or an ask that could have been.
What kind of ask? Like, what kind of ask would you want?
Indictment. I mean, or police body cameras, or something like that, where we're asking for a specific thing, and then when it goes viral, all the world knows what we wanted, and it puts pressure on us.
Social media has given a platform to people who never had the opportunity to be heard before. You know, I may not have been interested in watching the news. I may not have been interested in, calling my local representative, but social media finally gives me a chance to say how I feel, to say that I'm not okay with this. And I think that is a huge part of activism.
Two other things social media has done is given us a mobile to actually organize people. Because of Twitter, and you know where to meet for the march, where to go for the teach-in. It's given us, like you said, a voice that it's not the bias of the media. We can now tell our own story.
I don't want students and I don't want young activists to get lost in social media and feel as though this is the only way for me to make a difference. There's so much more that needs to be done than just tweeting, just Instagram.
One of the big things that came out when Michael Brown was killed was that he was about to start college that Monday. There was a sense almost that because he was headed to college, that this wasn't supposed to happen there.
I hated hearing that, because just because you're heading to college does not mean you've earned the right to live. If he was heading back home next week, if he wasn't going to college, he still did not deserve to be murdered and left out in the street for 4 hours.
And I think that's why the picture resonated so much. when we did it is because it showed that literally any of one of us could have been Michael Brown. We don't walk around with our resumes stapled to our forehead. All of us pretty much have been in a situation that could have turned out that way. So I think that's why you saw it catch on so virally, and that's the point we really wanted to make with the picture.
Growing up, a lot of African Americans are taught, well, if you dress a certain way, if you talk a certain way and carry yourself a certain way, you're exempt from this rule of African Americans having a negative stereotype. And the fact that Michael Brown did what he was supposed to do, he was on his way to college, and he was still a victim to racial profiling, that says a lot.
Let us know what's at stake for you. Go to BET.com/what's at stake and tweet us at what's at stake.
How do you all think that Ferguson gets represented and black people in general get represented in the media versus other communities?
The people that are supporting Darren Wilson are labeled supporters. The people that support Michael Brown are called rioters. Michael Brown is dead, so I think that shows the dichotomy between the automatic assumptions of what the supporters of both sides are characterized as.
The sad fact is when a black man is murdered, he must posthumously defend his right to live. Right now, Mike Brown is on trial. What did he do moments before he was killed? What was he like in school? I haven't seen any video footage of what Darren Wilson was doing hours before Mike Brown was murdered. He's not on trial right now. Right now, we're trying to decide, did Mike Brown really deserve to live? And this is the same thing that happened with Trayvon Martin. Well, he smoked a little marijuana and he was, troubled in school. His family has to defend his right and say, no, he was a good kid. He was going to do that. That conversation to me is irrelevant.
What do we tell our community? What do you tell your peers on how to deal with this situation beyond Ferguson?
Know your rights.
But I don't know if that's gonna help. Knowing your rights and even articulating your rights doesn't really save you.
The one thing that I've gone back to look at is the facts. I looked at the example of Rialto, California, where they implemented the police body cameras. I realized that that's one of the many solutions, but police complaints went down by 88% in year one, and actual uses of police force went down by 60% in year one. However, Ferguson had police body cameras.
They were like in a closet. Right. They were locked up in a room somewhere, right?
So when you implement them, who hasn't? Are they actually deployed? Are they turned on, right? If they're turned off, who is liable? And then finally, who is reviewing the tape so that we make sure that it's not being tampered with?
I want to believe that body cameras are the answer, but I watched Eric Garner be murdered on camera. I watched it with my own eyes. I saw a police officer choke him to death after yelling, "I can't breathe," 11 times. So we have tape, we have footage, and nobody has been charged.
So then what do we do? What else do we do?
I'd like to see an indictment if they actually had the fear that they would go to jail. I can't change the fact that they're racist, but I can make sure that, this person pays for their crime.
So are y'all optimistic about the future?
I would definitely say I'm optimistic about what can happen, but I don't want to get comfortable in that optimism.
I'm definitely optimistic. I mean, when we look at history, we see that there have been trials. We're a people of fortitude. Young people were the ones to actually take ownership and take the movement. And I just think that this is our moment.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, talking to y'all, I feel a lot more optimistic about the future. So thank you all for talking to me, and stay with us here at What's at Stake. We got a lot more coming up.
Let us know what's at stake for you. Go to BET.com/what's at stake and tweet us at what's at stake.